Fascinating Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.
Hello everyone and welcome to the new season of Tome Travelers, the original tabletop RPG pop culture retrospective show, which is a very long-winded way of saying we like to talk about games. So tonight I'm chatting with a group of gamers and creators ready to go into the deep end. So let's have everyone introduce themselves, explain what they've been involved in, and what is the maximum amount of dice they have ever rolled in one action of a tabletop RPG. That last one I think might have caught a couple of y'all off guard. So if you want me to, I can go ahead and introduce myself if y'all need a moment.
No, I'm good. I already know it.
Oh, okay.
Hi, so my name is Shawn. Not a game designer, just an aficionado. Love games, played them my entire life. You can usually see me here at Rick and Rasp streaming a lot of actual plays, both past and present. The game, so actually that's a good segue. On the last Serious Let's Play, we did the oh John, you're gonna have to help me, the raccoon game.
Ooh, are we talking about
Garbage and Glory?
Yep.
Matthew, and I think at one point I was rolling 10d6.
Not bad.
Nice.
Because the way my little barbarian raccoon was set up, it was like, cool, I'm just gonna spend all my points and roll this big handful of dice.
Would somebody else like to go next?
Hi, I'm Madfish. I kind of randomly pop up on other people's Twitch channels now and then. And I'm not really online anymore, but I hang around. I do some writing for Nerdburger Games, and I've done some writing for some other games, and I've been gaming for a million years. Recently, actually, very recently, I got to roll an absolutely massive amount of dice. I'm playing a necromancer in a high-level game with a bunch of old gamers. And my necromancer brought a little mini army of skeletons. And they all got to attack. And so I was just rolling for everybody all at once. I think I got to roll 12 d20s.
Wow, not bad. Nice. D20s?
That was a really satisfying. Well, I was rolling for all of them to attack at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So I just decided to, really just cram them all in there and get a really good, satisfying, shake. That was, and then I did it again for like all the damage. It was a bunch of D6.
Nice.
Yeah, oh, really man. Good dice ASMR that night.
I appreciate that.
Kori, that leaves you and me. Do you want to go next?
I can go next. Hi, this is Kori. You also know me as Little Loudmouse. You also know me from a couple of places here and there. I write and design RPGs in my spare time as much as I play them because I'm in way too many games both on and off air. So, to answer the question though, routinely, because I'm playing a high-level druid and my favorite spell is Blight, that's the most recent one. That, 9th level Blight is just so satisfying to roll. But in terms of the most dice I've ever rolled, it's either a toss-up between a damage roll in Savage Worlds, where my poor little non-combat character kicked somebody's ribcage through their spine, or one of my very first rolls in Shadowrun, which was, I don't even remember how many d6, but it was about... Cass can probably tell you the number, because she was the DM for that one, but it was massive, and I don't even remember if I failed or succeeded, but it was a lot, and I had fun.
Yeah, Shadowrun makes a lot of sense for that, because of this amount of dice you can roll. So, hi everyone, my name's John, and I'm part of the leadership here at Rook and Rasp. I wrote a game called Gutterpunk, which is a dice pool game, but... the second largest dice pool I ever rolled was in Shadowrun. I had a sniper character that at points could roll 20d6. And I think, yeah, that one was good, but it's not my record. And when I say it, Sharene, I think you're going to be like, oh yeah, the largest dice pool I ever had was almost 30 D10s in Changeling. And,
Yep.
yeah. That
There are ways you can do that.
that game, and I'm not even a huge. I like Changeling. Don't get me wrong. I like it. It's not my favorite World of Darkness setting, but that was like the biggest dice pool I've ever had. So, welcome everyone. Today we do have a smaller group of cast, but the thing is, it is such a big topic, dice pools in general, that everybody has played these games, and I think everybody feels like we all have this pretty well covered. We're all familiar with them, and so we're gonna go ahead and dive right in. If everybody's ready.
Oh yeah.
So to look back, and we're all wondering, what was the first time a dice pool was used as the core resolution mechanic in games? Not just fireball or massive army attacks, because the 1960s to 1970s wargaming scenes had an excess before D&D really began using massive amounts of dice. It was tricky to research because the names associated with it, and because a company made it famous doesn't mean they were the first.
Mm-hmm.
So going down the list, I'm going to give you all a bunch of numbers. In 1990, Lion Rampant formed a new company known as White Wolf and published their World of Darkness books using a D10 dice pool system. That would I would thought, well, maybe White Wolf. Before then, FASA began producing Shadowrun, undoubtedly the most famous, in my opinion, dice pool system game in 1989. So the year before White Wolf did it, FASA did it. But when West End Games produced their mega popular and often referred to Star Wars RPG, it was made in 1987. So 2 years before FASA. And now finally we're at the point. Drum rolls. Before that, and after successfully challenging TSR with their game Paranoia, West End Games published their Ghostbusters: A Frightfully Cheery RPG. And it used D6 dice pool system, and it was released in 1986. That is the earliest dice pool game that I can find. If anyone can find one published earlier, I would love to hear it. But anybody here besides me have anything to do with Ghostbusters: A Frightfully Cheery RPG? Anybody even remember it?
No,
I
I
don't
wish. I was obsessed with Ghostbusters when it came out when I was a kid. It was just my favorite thing. I watched it over and over, and I would have loved that game.
Absolutely.
Now I know what I'm going to have to go find later.
It's a hard one to find. Seriously, that is like such a rare game. I do not have it. I have never even seen a copy up for sale. Not even at like game auctions I've been to. Have never seen it. But I think that there's some stuff I want to discuss about about dice pools and what they did and why it took off, because there's so much to discuss. But let's go ahead and dive in for other famous events from 1986, which is when this dice pool game came out. Fun ones, and maybe some that people aren't aware of. Pixar was first founded by John Lasseter and Steve Jobs. Yes, Pixar and that Steve Jobs in 1986. Anybody knew that one?
I did.
You did?
I'm an animation junkie, so
Yeah, same here.
I had no clue. I actually did not know that Steve Jobs had anything to do with Pixar.
Yep.
he was one of the chief drivers of the 3D animation industry at the time. Because he wanted to show off what computers in general could do, not just Mac versus Windows, but the technology drove technological advancements in animation.
And
For better or
honestly-
worse, but
honestly,
I love it.
He was the tech and the money man. John Lasseter was the creativity and the experience, and yeah.
Nice.
Lasseter provided heart,
Yes.
which the industry needed.
Which makes sense because, before Jobs and Wozniak was the heart.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. I always have to drop controversial ones, just based on I think it should not have taken this long. The first holiday celebrated of Martin Luther King Jr. Day was in 1986.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah. I really wish it had not taken that long. But moving on, though, not to be too quick, but getting us into the gaming. How about this? The first group of musicians ever inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was in 1986. And it included Elvis Presley, James Brown, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, and Jerry Lee Lewis. So a lot of pretty cool names there.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I was born the year Elvis died. He died in the summer, and I was born at the end of the year. And I remember all through my young childhood, there was always that Weekly World News at the checkout. Every now and then, they would run a story about Elvis still being alive with a blurry picture of
Yes.
guy who is vaguely the same shape, pumping gas at a gas station in Ohio somewhere or something. And they were always like, Elvis is still alive. And it was this thing through my entire childhood. When I was about 10 or so, it started to peter out. I guess 10 years on, it was a little bit hard to prove that he was not dead. But
yeah.
it was one of those things that it was sort of this background radiation of my childhood, and it was one of those you thought as a kid that quicksand was going to be a bigger problem. I always thought they were going to find Elvis.
And the thing is so I think it was about 2-3 years ago, somebody did the math on how old Elvis would be today, and that the chances of him still being alive are pretty much nil. But yet, then immediately after, people are like, "No, I saw him again." It's never going to go away.
I will give him
a mythical creature like Arthur. He will rise when the country needs him the most.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I loved most about the Sookie Stackhouse novels, which True Blood was based on, was that Elvis was brought back by a vampire fan.
Oh, wow.
And his life, he was so riddled with drugs, he's not exactly all there. And he will go into a murderous rage if you call him Elvis. So they refer to him as Bubba. It's funny. It's great.
It was pretty funny.
It's a great way to do it.
Okay.
They're pretty funny.
That sounds like something I would normally read, but I was not a big True Blood fan. Sorry, people, I was not. But another one for you. Brian Boitano wins the men's figure skating competition. Now, that's 1986. The song "What Would Brian Boitano Do" comes out from South Park in 1999. So 13 years. 13 years. I think he got his due, but...
Oh, yeah. Very much.
No, that was a big deal because I used to figure skate when I was little. And I just remember I can't remember why. I think that particular routine was really good for some reason. I don't even remember anymore.
I think was he one of the first people to bring rock and roll into figure skating or
something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but
either him or Scott Hamilton did one of the two.
See, and
year. Little before my time, so I don't know the specifics.
Yeah. He was one of those rule breakers, and the 80s was all about rule breakers.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, cute. Because I do remember seeing him as a kid.
Yeah.
Had it going. Had a lot going for him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of having something going for them, now this one dates me. This one makes me feel old. Top Gun was released in theater in 1986. Its follow-up, Top Gun Maverick, was released in 2022. Now, I'm just going to toss this out there. Can you imagine if Top Gun Maverick had waited and released on its 40th anniversary of the original?
It would have been awesome.
It already was a box office success. It would have only just added fuel to that fire. So, not going to lie. That actually makes me feel not old. Because hilariously, I have a story. I have a story about Top Gun. It's one of my favorite soundtracks. And they were doing a second screening event when I worked at a movie theater, like right after high school. I got to preview the film to make sure there were no big sections of like dust and scratches on the actual film.
Right.
Because it was an older one. And so my first time seeing Top Gun ever was being the only person in a movie theater with free popcorn and free soda.
Awesome.
Nice.
There's something about watching just like some of those jets take off in an empty theater. It was just like, oh, that was amazing.
And I don't know, since you're the youngest. When Top Gun came out, I think, John, you'll probably relate to this. Every boy wanted to be even before that movie came out, wanted to fly an F-14.
Oh, God. The Tomcat was the shit. Yes.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So when that movie came out, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a pilot.
What's hilarious is that I nearly went into the Air Force as a commissioned officer. Like, I took my ASVAB in high school, second in my class, like, just by 1 point. And, like, for the remainder of my school thing, the Air Force went after me hard. And part of me kind of regrets not going, but part of me at the time was like, I don't know if I trust our commander-in-chief at the time.
Yeah.
Because I graduated in 2005. That helps anything. So I was like, but man, I would have gone probably into the pilot program. That was before I even saw Top Gun.
Yeah. Well, I've got one more. I don't know if anybody else came with any, but I have one more for you. And that is something that I, to some extent, hope that I am live to see it happen again. And that is Halley's Comet passed by the Earth.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Our school had a big thing, and we all went, we went outside to see it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
I absolutely love astronomy. It's one of my favorite things in the whole universe.
It's so cool. We're learning so much all the time,
Yeah.
That's a topic I can wax on. Maybe I should start a astronomy podcast. Who knows? But returning to the topic at hand is games with dice pools. So for my entire panel here, I want to bring up a couple of questions for discussion. What were your first thoughts when encountering the dice pool system in a game?
I can go first.
Yeah.
My very first game system, first time I ever actually sat down, created a character, and went to session 1 was Shadowrun. So that was my very first exposure to tabletop RPGs, just in general. I found it very fun and kind of very physically satisfying to just take this handful of D6 and let them loose to like results that were really hilarious. Honestly, I have to give that game specifically and Shadowrun itself a little bit of credit, because without that, I wouldn't have met my wife, who was sitting somewhere in the crowd off the screen.
Nice.
So Shadowrun has a very fond place in my heart simply because of that.
I also started on I started on AD&D, but I went on to Shadowrun not long after. As much as I played Shadowrun, I didn't entirely understand the system. It wasn't really until I started playing Vampire and Changeling, which I went really into, that I kind of really, I got copies of the book and I could sit down and read it and really understand it. So I think I was just blown away by the simplicity of the system.
Shawn, how about for you?
Unfortunately, you're not going to get variety because, John, you're the one that introduced me to dice pools by playing Shadowrun. You did it for a stream. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, especially up to that point, most of my gaming had been D&D or a variant of a D20 system. So playing a dice pool for the first time was kind of really like, oh, the possibilities are awesome. Rolling this many dice. And it was just fun. It was just something visceral. You shaking that big handful of dice and dropping it and sorting through the results. I mean, it's a lot more fun than just rolling a d20 and then adding your modifiers and your pluses and minuses. It's really fun. Yeah. More engaging sometimes.
The algebra world problems.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that I love about the dice pool system, it comes down to something where I came out Palladium. And Palladium kind of doesn't deal with the whole idea of degrees of success and failure. It's either you succeed or you fail. You either hit the target number or you don't. And then I went into the D20 systems with Dungeons and Dragons, which introduced crits. All of a sudden you roll a 20, you succeed. Eventually critical fails come along and everything else. So there's only really one degree of success or failure in a D20 system. It's either you succeed or you really succeed, or you fail or you really fail if your system is using a crit fail system. But in dice pool games, all of a sudden you could have degrees of success. Maybe it's just a small success. Maybe you just squeaked by. Or maybe it's a degree of failure where it's like, you tried to shoot somebody and the clip fell out of your gun. You still have one bullet chambered, but everything else is on the floor. It's not a great failure. It's not the ultimate failure, but it's not a good one either.
No, I get that too. That's one of the reasons why when I looked at what kind of system I wanted to develop, I picked a dice pool mechanic. Is for that how successful things can be. Because sometimes there's really you just squeaked by one successes feel the most satisfying, just narratively.
I myself, I'm going to ask a question, and I think I already know the answer, but what do you enjoy most about dice pools?
I mean, they sound fun.
Yes,
tactile.
That's what
a tactile experience of just having a giant handful of dice and shaking them and watching them roll, and it's
the sound and the feel. Part of the tactile is if you're rolling for something that you're specifically trained that character in, you just feel that experience in that handful of dice. It's so much more than rolling 3. If you got enough experience, depending on the game, you're loading your hand with 15 dice because you made this character the sneakiest, most silent stealth person ever. You just know you're going to get successes, and it is incredibly fun when you run that handful of dice and you get absolutely no successes. The dice gods are great, you rolled 15 dice, they're all ones.
That feels
It'll either feel amazing when you get a whole bunch of successes, or it feels like you have been cursed by the gods when when you roll shitty.
And narratively, it fits so well because it I tell my daughter who's a dancer all the time, it's it doesn't matter how perfect you are, you're going to have bad days. And so you've got that stealthy character, you're rolling 15 dice. I guess he's having a bad day when it fails.
Yeah. That actually brings up a question I do want to ask. I think it might be the one thing that for the hardcore D20 people, the question on their minds, does a dice pool system give you that good balance between luck and strategy? When we do these mechanics as game creators, we want something that gives the sense that things could go right or things could go wrong. So you want that luck element, you want that chance to drive that story, to give the action importance. But you also, especially for that D20 crowd, you want that strategy. Oh, my thief's going to go over here and sneak over and do this. My barbarian's going to do this. All these people have their little tasks, but everybody is worried about that moment of strategy on the board and everything else. I want to know, do you think that there's a good balance between luck and strategy in dice pool games?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Any good game, for sure, but
that strategy thing comes down to everyone at the table. The GM for setting up the situation that you're going into, the players for understanding where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and the GM then engaging those strengths and weaknesses. That's not a thing that's any different from basic D&D system to Shadowrun to Savage Worlds and Deadlands. Just because you have a dice pool that you might be rolling 30 D6s doesn't make it any more strategically or luckier.
Yep.
Because I know a lot of that question is kind of aimed at the dungeon crawler crowd.
Yeah.
Those who are holding out because they like that wargamey aspect of some of these simpler dice games. I'm also going to have to point them out that, like, while it's technically not a role-playing game, Warhammer 40k is the most strategically minded war game on the market. It's also one of the most well-known, and it's a dice pool game. You roll a number of d6 for whatever skills dictated by whatever unit you're using. That
Well
kind of
said.
strategy versus luck thing that they want to kind of bring up, one of their most favorite war games actually kind of negates that argument if they're using it as a bad faith argument. Now, if somebody's genuinely curious, then there's no real difference in pool versus like maybe one or two
Now, if
for a
you're
target
looking at
number.
specific games, like if you take someone that plays D&D
Mhm.
fairly regularly, the dungeon crawler or whatever, and then like some of the dice pools allow you to amass your dice based on skills learned, proficiency, stuff like that. And then to dig down further into it, a lot of those dice pools will also let you not, like, let's say you can roll a total of 10 on an attack because you have proficiency in melee, strength, the whole nine yards. But at the same time, you don't have to roll all those 10. You can roll 5 to hold some points back to offer you rerolls or nudging up a dice. So in that case, I think that crowd is taking some of the strategy out because you don't have to maybe be as strategic if you nudge those dices. But I also would have to say that it adds a whole new level of strategy for when you're making your rolls. Do you hold back? Do you go all out? It's a new strategy, but it doesn't take away from the overall strategy.
No, some of Pen Flowering's games are like that, where you have a pool and you can roll from your or spend or not. It's not a pool; it's points, so you can spend the points, or you can roll. So you either spend a point to guarantee success, or you roll and take a chance. And that's a strategy all in itself, right there. Yeah. Like, are you going to take the chance? Because you could roll a 20, but you could roll a 1, right?
Yeah.
Or a 10 or whatever it is. I don't remember.
Well, this said, we're going to be moving on soon. I want to hear some people's recommendations. Really quick, before we move into that, though, I do want to say two things. First and foremost, we've mentioned them. We've talked about the World of Darkness, and we've talked about Shadowrun. And I do think it is important also to say these are the two games that have unseated D&D. When Shadowrun hit the market, it had a moment, a good run, when it had a larger market share than D&D. It managed to unseat it from being the number one tabletop RPG. Likewise, same with White Wolf, same with the World of Darkness. Both of them have had that glorious moment where they unseated the king. I think that is something that definitely deserves a nod. Being that dice pool game. And
yeah, for sure.
And
I've mentioned this before. I was in a vampire LARP that was over 100 people at one point. It was so popular. So that was how big it got.
Yep. And the Camarilla, all the organized play things out there. But goodness, there's so much to give, so many nods to give, because I think White Wolf World of Darkness did things right in some ways, such as the amount of books out there for it. At one time, between novels, different setting books, as well as the individual different clans or of groups within all the different worlds, in all the different genres, they had over 370 books. Over 370 books. That means that if you tried to read one book every day in the World of Darkness for a year, you would not read all of them. And that didn't include like the little mission like PDFs they were putting out.
I can hardly hear
Yeah.
it.
That yep, I see.
That's almost all of the Changeling books. I'm missing a few.
Yep.
But
And so I didn't know if
they're still good though.
I didn't know if anyone else was going to have those be their dice pool game recommendations for today. But I definitely felt like they needed a nod. And so, friends, Shadowrun is a lot of fun. Get out there, find a copy.
There's so many good editions.
It is, so many editions, so many variations. It is a great game. Likewise, all the different ways that you can play World of Darkness. Sharene had changed. Werewolf.
Werewolf is fun. I played a pretty heartbreaking game of Wraith once.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like Hunter is really fun. They're all fun, and I really like the way they can kind of blend together.
Yep.
But I developed a kind of modified changeling that still uses the dice pool, but
nice.
I changed up the magic. So
Nice.
Yeah, I love World of Darkness.
Play that. Let me know.
Demon the Fallen was secretly I think that was my biggest edgelord moment growing up was when I loved Demon the Fallen. But so I think those games need a nod. I also think maybe this is that official moment where either somebody needs to reignite it like a phoenix, or somebody needs to let it go. And that's the old roll and keep system, which is technically a dice pool. I don't think anybody's playing in that anymore. The way that old school Seven Seas and the way old school Legend of the Five Rings used to play.
I swear I've played Seven Seas in the past. That sounds so familiar.
It's a great game. It recently had a Kickstarter where a company over in Europe put out a new setting guide and campaign guide, which did over $1 million. Nice. So on
Good.
Kickstarter. So hopefully that will ignite the system. It's a great world.
It's so good.
Yeah. But the thing is that the dice pool system that it used to use, there's still old gamers like me who still play it, but I don't know if we'll ever see anybody use that system again. It's heavily associated with Fantasy Flight Games, so people are probably like, oh, we don't want to risk them coming and knocking on our doors. But
There are two things with the Fantasy Flight systems, though, is that they're moving towards their own proprietary dice mechanics. We saw it start with the Star Wars RPG that they put out.
Yep.
But also, correct me if I'm wrong, because there's been so many news changes between 2019 and today that my brain is just like,
No.
What? And is Fantasy Flight still operating a tabletop RPG section at all?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So they shut down their production here in the United States. Part of their properties went to Ghost Galaxy, who owns Keyforge. Part of the games went to him, and we haven't seen any RPGs come from them yet. I would love to see it. Hey, you out there, we would love to see it. This is also the guy that originally was involved with Magic, way back in first and second runs of Magic, the Gathering. Second group, however, it's Edge Entertainment. Now, Edge Entertainment was a gaming distributor and creator. I believe they are Italian. I don't believe they're French. I believe they are an Italian group over in Europe, obviously. And they own all the rights to the Star Wars RPG. They own Legend of the Five Rings. Any of the reprints of the books that you will see will have Edge, in big block letters on the cover now in the lower corner as the Fantasy Flight properties. They have promised they are going to continue them. And the properties look great. Edge puts out great games. I believe they are the Italian distributors for both Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. So they know the business, and they got a good foothold in it. But they are also now the ones releasing, publishing, and taking care of those games. So just, yes, they do. So long story short, I'm sorry, Kori.
You do silly. Oh no,
long story
it's
short,
actually genuinely good information because like what happened to those properties, which hey, hilariously are also dice pool. They're just kind of convoluted when you look at it, think about it.
Yeah.
I remember playing a Star Wars game. It was fun. I loved that character. Figuring out what I'm rolling took a moment.
Yeah.
But no, it's good information to have though, because what did happen to those games if Fantasy Flight themselves are no longer operating as a tabletop producer?
Oh,
which is fun.
God, I wish I was a hot button RPG podcast, because the stories out there about that. Wow. But I'm not a hot button person. Not often anyway.
Not when it's like just.
Yeah.
Now that the gossip is juicy enough, then maybe.
Oh, it's juicy. It's just that I don't want to be that person that much. I would rather do what we're doing, and that's like show people new games and say, "Hey, this is out here. Let's
talk about what we like."
That." Yeah, because really, I want this show's supposed to be about building, and
yeah.
Which that said, let's go ahead and get into those recommendations. Who here has some games they would like to recommend that are dice pool games? So
I have a couple.
We
haven't touched on at all yet.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them.
The first one barely counts as a dice pool because the most you roll is 3, but I'm still counting it because it's more than 2. And that is going to be the age system, and specifically, let me pull it out here because it's a massive tome. Blue Rose, let's see if
Yes.
This is one of my favorite settings because this is what fantasy is to me. This is what I grew up reading, was romantic fantasy, like Tamora Pierce, like bits of Brandon Sanderson. He can be counted as romantic fantasy for some of his stuff. Not all of it, but some of it. My other recommendation, aside from the age system in Blue Rose, is a local writer. I've had him on the channel before. And it's Fantasy. This is a genuine dice pool game. This is one of my favorite independent writers, and just he's a pleasure to work with. And this game is so much fun because you can get nuts in so many fun ways. This is Fantasy.
Yep. Serious big shout out to Calvin. Yeah.
Yeah, Calvin. Kind of wish he was here because he could talk for ages about dice pool games too.
Yeah, Calvin is an absolute treat, and I hope to one day be able to run into him. We were actually slated to be, when I did Gutterpunk release, he was supposed to be at Gen Con that year and didn't make it, so just how it shook out. But who else?
That just means you're going to have to come to Texas.
Yeah, well, that is in the works. I know, Shawn, I am in my own way slowly thinking about making my way down there, if anything because I miss my friends, but I miss also, guys, I'm sorry, I miss the food.
Oh yeah,
so that makes sense.
Fair.
So best Tex-Mex in the world. So we're the home of it.
Also, some of the worst Tex-Mex around here too. Sometimes
that's where it comes from. Yeah.
You know that is kind of how it works.
But we all know where to go, and where not to go.
Yeah, Ponchos. What?
Some were good. I have fond memories of Ponchos, but that's because I was a kid when they were at the height of their popularity.
There is still one open.
Yeah,
I want to find them. I so want to find them because
there was a chain. There used to be a chain called Chi-Chi's.
Yes, they still
Had
exist.
that in the States. Oh, okay. Well, they moved out of Canada. I don't think there's any more in Canada, but we used to have them all over the place.
Yep.
So,
And
John,
then one day they were all gone.
the Ponchos is across the feeder road from Etten Games in Humble.
What?
Yes. So we could do a two stop hit, Etten Games and Ponchos.
Okay.
You can go.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Gaming and food.
Well, so here's the thing. Ponchos was a cafeteria-style Mexican restaurant. You went in, you got your plate, which was usually hot, and you'd put it on the most factorially made Mexican food you could ever imagine. Like Jack in the Box tacos have nothing on Ponchos.
Your cheese enchiladas were good.
But the thing that that you would go there and you would eat once. I'm sorry to digress on this, but you would go there and you would eat, and you would never want to go back there for 6 months to a year, and then you'd get that hankering. You'd be like,
I want cheap Mexican food.
I want cheap Mexican. I want Ponchos. And yes, neo nerd lady. Yes, sopapillas.
Yes.
They would bring around at the end of your meal a basket of soft, hard to find a lot of places these days, soft sopapillas that you would fill with honey and just die happy at the table. So
You're forgetting the best part about Ponchos is that when you would want more, you don't have to go back in line. You just raise the little flag on your table.
yeah, but they'd bring it to you.
Tell the waitstaff what you want.
Yep.
That's like the fondest memories. Like as a kid, just raising the flag.
Mm-hmm. All right, sorry for that digression. Who else wants to talk about a dice bowl game? Who else is a dice bowl game?
I've got a couple here. So, quite a few of Nerdburger Games are dice pool games. One of the things I like, not just because, and I'm not just saying this because like I like Craig and he's my friend and he's a very cool person, but he is. But he's very, very clever. And one of the things I really like about all of his games is he has this really great ability to describe something with enough words that you know what's going on, but also it's concise. So he knows how to sort of create a good couple of sentences to explain everything you kind of need to know. So he's very good about like putting everything you need to know in the one book. It's all nice and simple. You just start at the front and you read through the book, and you know what you're doing. So Die Laughing is an excellent game for especially if you have people who never role played, who don't really know how to get into characters and that sort of thing, because it's based on movie tropes. You are a character inside a horror comedy movie. And as you lose your dice pool, you start with a 6 dice and you lose them as you go. And when you die, you become a producer and you still affect the movie. My favorite is you get to change the budget of a scene. So if you can have someone describe a scene, and then you can say, "Oh no, we don't have the budget for that. You got to tone that down." Or you can be like, "We just got a great big boost from the, you got to redo that scene, but like with way more special effects." And yeah, so it's really fun. Anyway, so the nice thing is just that it comes with like pre-made characters that you can just sort of pick up, and they're all very movie trope characters, the nerd and the jock and the cheerleader and whatever. So it's very, very easy for people who are just getting into role playing, and it really helps them get into a character, and especially because your character is going to die, so it's like do whatever you want. Right? Like you don't have to hold back. You can just do whatever you want because you're probably not making it to the end of the movie. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I've seen a lot of people like start out. When I've played with them, they'll start out kind of shy, but it's actually not that hard to get into the game. There's also 2 more real quick. Code Warriors, which we sold quite a lot of at Gen Con to, which was nice. It's about being inside a computer and the computer is crashing and shutting down, and so your world is crumbling as you and you're trying to escape it and save it and fix it and sort of thing. And it reminds me, I used to watch Reboot.
Yeah.
It's very, very much like that.
Very reboot. I loved the session we did of that one for SLP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've ever wanted to play like a character from Reboot, play Code Warriors. And yeah, they're both very simple dice pools. And Good Strong Hands is a fantasy, beautiful fantasy book. Really good art. Actually, they all have really good art. And it's another one of those like very 80s kind of fantasy, very like think like Legend and Dark Crystal and that kind of slightly dark role play, like fantasy world where there's like everything is wonderful and beautiful, but then there's this like really dark side over there, you know. I was like, we don't look at the dark side, la, 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 and you know. And so it's sort of about this corruption, and you have to balance your corruption versus saving the world. So there's some strategy there, but there's also a lot of really good role play opportunities, you know, because as you use the magic, you become more corrupted, but you have to use the magic or you can't save the world. So it's this kind of like, you know, you're being corrupted as you are the good guy. It's a lot of really good role play if you're like a, you know, intense sort of interpersonal relationships game. It's really good for that. But yeah, the setting is just beautiful, and all of these have great art. You know, that's definitely a plus. I mean, if I'm going to go ahead and buy a physical book, I want it to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy the the book itself, you know, and be able to flip through it and enjoy the. Yeah. But yeah, these ones are very much like rules light kind of vibes. So if that's the kind of thing you like, that's my recommendation.
Awesome. All right. Well, Bink, you got any you want to toss out, or do you want me?
No, I've got a couple. Yeah, we've already touched on several of them, but Seven of the Seas is one of my favorites. It's just an amazing world that borders on grimdark and is just so narrative. It's all just so much fun. Nice. The other one, and Kori should be familiar with this one, is the Aliens RPG, which works on a dice pool. And John's familiar with that one too. You were in that campaign, yeah. That one is great. I mean, because this kind of circles back to the D20 strategy. That game, even though it is a dice pool, it is super rules heavy. It is super tactical, and there are so many things that can take and add into your dice pool when you're doing your attacks or defenses or lack thereof. It's just a really remarkable game and uses that mechanic really well, and you can do a lot narratively with it.
Including having your shoulders get rotated one way while your hip goes another.
Yeah, wasn't that was called the dish rag move, I believe.
Yeah, Mr. Cuddles, whatever. Is that was Yeah,
Mr. Cuddles.
Oh.
Nice.
Rev still won't let me live that one down. Can't wait.
We get you to a health pod.
Yeah, eventually. Best moment ever I've ever played through.
It was.
God, it is.
That sounds pretty good.
The other one that I'm a real big fan of right now is Garbage and Glory, which I know it's not. Should be going to Kickstarter soon. I think.
No, it's
Matthew said.
Garbage and Glory actually completed on Kickstarter. It's coming to
it
fulfillment soon.
That's what it was.
Think that man, Wet Ink has just been hitting out there so much recently. I just got one of my board games this last week, which had a pretty good time with 0 Day War. But yeah, they've that one should be coming down the pipe pretty soon. I think their Never Going Home physical books will be going out next. So yeah,
But that one was great. The artwork is amazing. I love the dice pool mechanics, and it just sets up for some of the most ridiculous situations, such as the when we played it on seriously Let's Play. We had 4 raccoons stealing a Barbie Jeep and going down the road in a Barbie Jeep. It was so over the top. It was awesome. It was
I love
great.
it. Said I missed that one.
Yeah. I'm actually.
Oh, I forgot.
Oh,
Sorry, I forgot. I was actually introduced to a new one that I ended up enjoying quite a bit called Era of Silence.
Ooh.
It has some really, really fun customization to make your character. It was set in space, and it had some, just some neat dice pool stuff. I found it's a little more rules heavy than sort of what I usually lean toward, but I did not find it difficult to understand. It has a lot of really fun art, has this sort of slightly anime kind of look to it, but it's space fantasy.
ooh.
So it's like a sci fantasy kind of vibe.
Okay, so Leiji Matsumoto vibes. Kind of
I'm not familiar with that, but
Galaxy Railways.
Oh,
Very
okay.
strong. If you've seen the Depeche Mode album video for the Interstellar 5555 is the name of the movie that was based off the Depeche Mode album that I can't remember the name of. Discovery, I want to say.
But it was by
Wow.
the same animators that did
That did-
Star Blazers, right? And Captain Harlock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those vibes.
yeah, but it had like, elves and magic, but it also had like spaceships and lasers, It was quite fun. It's an indie game that I was just introduced to, so
Yeah.
I thought I should get a
Sounds
shout
like-
out.
Might need
It's
to find a
quite
link for that
fun.
one too.
Yeah, it was quite fun.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, you kind of stole one of mine because I was actually going to talk about.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Nah, you're good. Because, dude, this is honestly, this is, in my opinion, maybe one of the best RPGs to have hit the market in the last decade.
Yes.
The Alien
very
RPG, the way it handles stress, the way it handles skills, and the fact that they're going to be doing a second edition.
Ooh.
That's fun.
So like it hit
into
well
that.
enough, yeah, hit well enough that they're going to go ahead and do a second edition. Although they have said they're not really making it a huge change. There are going to be some new mechanics that they'll address and try and put in one place.
But yeah.
And they also said, now this is an interesting one that got talked about this last week, is that they are going to move away from, I'll show this to everybody here on the Twitch screen. They did a really heavy black page. And people have talked about how when you get this book,
It was nice.
it smells like ink. Like this book just
Oh, okay.
smells like ink for months after you unwrap that plastic wrap.
Oh,
And
I'm
so-
kind of worrying about like off gases and microplastics in your
Yeah.
lungs.
So the next edition they have announced is not going to be that way. The next edition they're going to try and make something which also will address the price a little, and that is it's going to be much more printer friendly because you got to print all that black when you do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like that's an inverse print. That's like,
Yeah.
They're changing out an ink cartridge like after every print.
Oh. That's not the worst.
Oh,
God,
dang.
I'm gonna
I
say
know that's not how it works.
I will save that story for after because that's a fun story to talk about what was probably the most beautiful RPG and the worst printer experience anybody ever had with an RPG.
Oh no.
But I'll talk about that after. So since Aliens for me is gone, I have one more. It is a space opera game, and it has been on the channel. And we were part of the groups that got to do a preview of it, a actual play for it before it went to print. And that is, yes, I see Bink over there,
Yep, I remember it now.
Fragged.
Oh, Frank was
Yeah.
so good.
So Fragged is out of Australia. It is a creator there, which I'll touch on the story first, and that is humanity went to the stars, did everything, hit evolutionary peaks, and this absolutely dominated the universe. And then they realized, hey, we're going to die out. We won't be able to continue on. We've hit a point in our genetic strain where we will slowly cease to exist. And so they begin to prepare for it. They make their own child species. And that child species, like humanity drifts away, and that humanity is gone. This child species also kind of hits that point where they are messing with technology and the universe in ways they could not imagine. And they've discovered they are not the only life form out there. There is an alien life form, just as smart, just as capable. And they begin a interstellar war where they create their own races and creatures themselves. Universe falls apart, goes into a post-apocalyptic phase. The two progenitor races after humanity are wiped out, and all these races have to come into the space race together. And they're rediscovering technology and rediscovering society at that space stellar travel age. And it is a phenomenal game. And what he calls it is a post-apocalyptic setting. So you are cruising around the universe, and the artwork, the layout of this game is amazing. There's a race that is entirely based on corporations. That's how they managed to get into space. A race that is kind of part cat. There is a race of just miscellaneous mutated genetic aliens that have no specific physical trait. They're just, bizarre. There's a race of sentient computers. There is a race of actual cat people. And a race.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, they're called the Twifar, and they are psychic and have kind of a magical power. But the thing is, these races that came after the two progenitor races, even though one might have been made by the progenitor races that descended from humanity, while the other one is from the alien race that created their own races to fight in their war, they all have to learn to get along. And so it is this huge stellar game property using D6s. The average roll is a 3d6, but you can buy and get more dice. Absolutely gorgeous Kickstarter. I really highly recommend Fragged if you get out there and are looking for something different. I absolutely love the setting. I ran it here on the channel, and I think it deserves a nod, and people need to pay attention to it. But because it is an English-speaking country where it is from, it's just not. It's not as big here in the States as it is there in Australia.
And honestly, the game we played was like one part Farscape, one part Firefly. I mean, it was like a band of misfits that are trying to make their way in the universe. It was really good.
Yeah. I had a wonderful time.
Sounds really fun.
It is, and I think there's something to be said when a game, honestly, just feels original. Like, it feels like you hit a point where a concept hasn't been done before. And that's what drew me to Fragged. At least for me, I have never played in a post-apocalyptic game like that. Where, so many people are like, in D&D, humanity is one race. And there's all these other races. And people are like, and there's always kind of the backseat. Well, here's a game where humanity doesn't even exist. I think there's something to be said for that too.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, the corp subclass was the closest to human you can get.
Yeah, and disliked because their entire society is built around what can you do for the corporation. And so, yeah, that's their birthright. That's who they are. That's what got them into space.
I mean, that wasn't too far of a stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. They just don't have any special powers while everybody else does. They have money.
I mean, that is a superpower. It's a weird one.
Batman,
Yep.
Yeah.
right? The superpower of infinite money works just fine for Batman. So
Oh, good point. Good point.
Okay.
All
Infinite
right.
money, super smart, and a really good R&D team. That's got one heck of an NDA.
Truth. All right. So, does anybody have anything else they want to toss out tonight for dice pools? Because, I mean, this is a topic that there are games that kind of move or flow through into that dice pool section. But by and large, we are all very familiar with them. Unless you are from a crowd that is like, I only play this game. But does anybody have any others that you'd like to toss out?
Just the one that I'll be previewing in a few weeks.
Yeah.
That is my own. I like Redbuds in spring and the Redbuds engine that's coming out of it. I can speak, I swear. It is a dice pool based game, and I cannot wait to unveil those mechanics in Seriously Let's Play.
Nice.
That's on November 16th.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. That's really
Yeah.
fun. What's your setting? Can you tell us about the
setting? So, giving away a little bit of a preview, the setting is called Vampire of Campeche. It's a very specific adventure within a broader series of Texas adventures that I'm going to be writing. And essentially, about 50 years in the future, you are all sailors on a cargo barge heading between the port of Houston to somewhere in New Orleans. And like the title implies, you run into a very historical figure who happens to be a vampire. You have to deal with him. So
That sounds
Nice.
awesome.
I can't
now
wait
I
to have fun with that. With y'all.
And now I have that Concrete Blonde song stuck in my head.
Oh wait, you mean I didn't realize that was your game, Kori?
Yeah.
Yes, it's the one that I wrote.
Oh,
So
okay. Now I'm way looking forward to it.
thank you. So I'm looking forward to playing with all of you too, even though it's still technically in the editing process. But hey, some things are subject to change. Some things are still set in stone. The dice pool mechanic is set in stone because
Nice.
it's a mechanic I've seen exactly once, but done in a different way. Twice now, because it's in another game now too. So
Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna have fun with it and fun with y'all. So I look forward to that one. That's the other place y'all can find me. Is here in SLP. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I will say really quickly, Gutter Punk is also a dice pool game, but honestly, I've got actual plays. I got other stuff out there for it, so go check it out if you want to. Next topic, I'm gonna toss this out.
Fun.
Yeah, thank you. Well, next topic, and I wanted to toss this out. I think that this is a good time to talk about accessibility in tabletop RPGs. We've talked about dice mechanics, and we've talked about card mechanics, and yes, there are many other ways. We could do an episode on percentile based games, and just talk about Chaosium the entire show. But but they don't need that much press. They're pretty awesome at what they do. And honestly, there's so many podcasts and actual plays for Call of Cthulhu.
There might be 2 or 3 here.
Yeah.
Well, I play in a game, and the only thing that I've been doing, we don't broadcast it anywhere. The only thing that I've been doing is tracking. We have a conspiracy theorist, and he's like, I want to play a conspiracy theorist, but he's like, I know that real conspiracies are very racist and anti-Semitic and horrible, and I don't want to be connected to that. And so we're like, okay, just make shit up, just randomly make shit up. And we'll just go along with it as if this is a conspiracy theory. And he's like, cool. So he's just been winging them, and I've been tracking them on my computer, and they're hilarious.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is that Big Ben was grown organically.
Nice.
And also, the Mona Lisa is sleeping and cannot be awoken. the guards have to read her bedtime stories.
Oh no. That
Yeah.
sounds like fun
That's some,
theory.
yeah, exactly, right? I love his, yeah. That's the only thing we've been tracking out of them, but it's been hilarious. It's been really funny.
By accessibility, John, are you talking about ways to bring in
Yeah.
like
So-
blind, deaf,
Yeah.
that kind of accessibility?
So
Mhm.
right now, and I'll toss this out. There is a bundle going right now on itch, which is accessibility in tabletop RPGs. It's being ran by Just the Human. That's their name on itch. And the idea of it was to raise enough money to go. I believe they're working with Die Hard Dice. I may be wrong, and I apologize if I am. To begin a mass production of Braille dice. Now,
Nice.
this has brought up a lot in our community that I really think shouldn't be a hot button topic, because for some reason people associate accessibility. It's been overly politicized, and maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't be. But the thing is that I really think it's time we discuss the reality of how long accessibility has been a part of the tabletop RPG scene, and how it goes back to its beginning. And so I think that's what I want to bring to our next show, because there is so much to talk about that I could just spew right now. But anyway, if you want to go and support the accessibility in tabletop RPGs, go check it out. It's a bundle. Gutterpunk is in it. Probably, I think it's over 100 different, about 100 different RPGs are a part of it, and we're all trying to raise money. We've already surpassed our goal in order for the dice to be created and produced. I do believe there are
Nice.
both acrylic dice and metal dice being produced in this set. So
That's
yeah,
rad. That is rad.
yep. And honestly, I mean, I think you're spending just less than $20 and walking away with hundreds of RPGs. Why not go
Nice.
support it?
I always love the itch bundles.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
They're so worth it every time.
Yep. All right. So that said, we will see you in a month for our next RPG, our next discussion for Tome Travelers, where it is a round table. And then after that, it is going to be, we're going to start hitting individual topics. And I can announce that one I'm already in discussions on. And we're going to do a episode as we talk about singular RPGs. We're going to go for Old Gods of Appalachia.
Oh, cool.
So,
Nice.
we will talk to everyone soon. And hey, stay safe, stay well out there, and get to playing some games. Night, everybody.
Night.
Night.
Fast Moving Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.